I was born into a middle-class family, solid, dependable, and predictable. My parents worked hard to provide for us, juggling jobs that drained them physically but never once complained. Growing up, I heard the phrase, "family always supports family," so often it became a mantra etched into my soul. My sister Maria was the golden child, destined for greatness in everyone's eyes, while Alex, my younger brother, was the perpetual screw-up who always needed just one more chance. And then there was me, Ethan, the quiet achiever who learned early on that success wasn't handed to you, it had to be earned through grit and sacrifice. When I founded Sentinel Security 8 years ago, I poured every ounce of energy into building something from nothing. Late nights blurred into early mornings as I coded algorithms, pitched investors, and fought off competitors trying to steal my ideas. The stress was suffocating at times, but each small victory fueled my determination. By the time the company gained traction, I thought I'd finally reached a place where I could breathe easier. But life has a way of testing even the strongest resolve. It started innocently enough, a request here, a favor there. My father lost his job due to corporate downsizing, and he called me with what sounded like genuine desperation. "Just until I get back on my feet," he assured me over the phone, promising repayment that never came. At first, it felt right to help. The same values drilled into me since childhood told me this was what family did. Then came Maria's tuition demands. She insisted on attending an exclusive private university despite her average grades, claiming it would be an investment in her future. When my mother argued, "You know how important education is," I couldn't say no. After all, hadn't I worked multiple jobs just to afford public college? But the requests didn't stop. They multiplied, morphing from temporary fixes into endless obligations. Alex's DUI landed him in legal trouble, followed by bail payments and failed business ventures that bled me dry. Every time I hesitated, they reassured me, "He just needs someone to believe in him." Meanwhile, Amanda, my wife, watched silently as our savings dwindled and our own dreams were put on hold. Our children, Helen and Paul, grew accustomed to hearing excuses about why we couldn't take vacations or upgrade their school supplies. The cracks began to show when Maria rolled her eyes during dinner, dismissing our plans for Helen's private education as frivolous. "Must be nice to throw money away," she sneered, conveniently forgetting whose rent I paid every month. Alex openly mocked our son Paul's piano recital, showing up late and leaving early without clapping once. Yet, when Alex found himself in yet another financial bind, my parents expected me to drop everything to bail him out, again. One evening, as I sat alone in my home office reviewing bank statements, a chilling realization hit me. The numbers stared back like ghosts of decisions past. Mortgage assistance for my parents' house, $90,000, Maria's extravagant lifestyle, $110,000, Alex's endless bailouts, $140,000. The total crept closer to $500,000, and climbing. My hands trembled as I set the papers down, the weight of it pressing against my chest. How long could I keep sacrificing everything for people who didn't seem to value what I gave? That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of my childhood. I remembered the sacrifices my parents made, the love they showed me, and the belief that family always came first. But somewhere along the way, those ideals had twisted into something unrecognizable. Instead of gratitude, I faced entitlement. Instead of respect, I endured dismissal. As dawn broke, I walked downstairs to find Amanda sitting at the kitchen table, her face lined with worry. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. I wanted to tell her yes, that everything would work itself out. But deep down, I knew the truth. This couldn't go on forever. It was a humid Sunday evening when my parents invited us over for dinner. The air felt heavy like the calm before a storm, but I didn't think much of it at first. My father greeted me with his usual forced smile, though there was an edge to his tone that set off faint alarms in my mind. "Ethan, we need to talk about some things," he said casually, gesturing toward the dining table where Maria sat scrolling through her phone and Alex leaned back in his chair, smirking as if he owned the place. Amanda clutched my hand briefly, silently offering support, but I could already feel the tension building. The conversation started innocently enough. Small talk about work, vague compliments about how well Sentinel Security was doing, but soon turned sour. When Helen shyly mentioned her acceptance into the prestigious summer science program, my father's expression shifted from indifference to thinly veiled disdain. He swirled the bourbon I had gifted him last Christmas, took a sip, and sneered. $5,000 for summer camp? You're wasting money on those kids when your sister needs a new car. They're just going to be a financial burden anyway. I froze, staring at him as if trying to process whether those words had truly left his mouth. Maria chimed in without missing a beat, inspecting her freshly manicured nails while adding, "Oh, by the way, my rent's due tomorrow. Don't forget to transfer the money. Oh, and I need an extra $1,000 this month for Coachella tickets." Her voice carried the same casual entitlement she'd always worn like second skin. Alex laughed mockingly, leaning forward. "Yeah man, stop being stingy. We all know you've got cash to burn." My eyes darted around the room. Amanda's face had gone pale, her lips pressed tightly together in frustration. Helen's small frame seemed to shrink further into her seat, pretending to focus intently on her dessert. Paul, sitting beside her, looked confused, sensing the weight of the moment even if he couldn't fully understand it. In that instant, something inside me snapped, a sharp, undeniable crack like glass shattering under pressure. I stood up abruptly, surprising even myself. My chair scraped against the floor, breaking the suffocating silence. Without saying a word, I walked over to the wall where the framed family portrait hung, the one I had paid thousands for, from the high-end photographer to the custom framing. I carefully took it down, held it for a few lingering seconds, then flipped it face down onto the table. Every movement was deliberate, symbolic. "I'm finished," I said, my voice calm but firm. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then laughter erupted around the room, loud and dismissive. "Yeah, right," my father chuckled, swirling his drink again. "Now, about Maria's car situation." "I'm not joking," I interrupted, my voice steadier than I felt. "The mortgage assistance, the credit cards, the constant loans that never get paid back. It all stops today." "Don't be absurd," my mother snapped, glaring at me. "You know your father didn't mean what he said." "Now, regarding Maria's rent?" I turned to Amanda, who offered me a small but supportive nod. Then I looked at my children, confused, hurt, yet somehow relieved, and finally addressed my family. "In 12 years I've given you more than $500,000. And yet, you still treat me and my family as if we're insignificant. This ends now." Their laughter followed me out the door, convinced I wasn't serious. They were wrong. That night, sleep eluded me entirely. At 3 a.m. I found myself seated in my home office, surrounded by bank statements, a notepad and a calculator. My hands trembled as I sifted through transactions, carefully listing every so-called loan, every supposed gift, every expense I had covered. Mortgage assistance, $90,000, Maria's costs, $110,000, tuition, rent, car shopping, Alex's bailouts, $140,000, legal issues, failed businesses, actual bail payments, parents' credit card debt, $45,000, medical costs, $155,000, vacations I paid for but was never invited to join, $20,000, gifts, holidays and last-minute emergencies, $30,000. Total, $450,000, close to $1 million. As I stared at the numbers, they stared back like ghosts of decisions past. Money that could have secured my children's education, expanded my business earlier, or allowed Amanda to pursue her dreams without financial worries. Instead, it had vanished into an abyss of greed and entitlement. I printed the breakdown and taped it to my office wall, not as a reminder of what I had lost, but as proof of what I would never sacrifice again. Sitting there in the dim light, I whispered to myself, "Never again." The days following my declaration felt surreal, as if I had stepped into a parallel universe where the rules of reality no longer applied. For the first time in over a decade, I woke up without the dread of incoming financial requests looming over me. Instead, I focused on practical steps to protect myself and my family. I hired a lawyer to draft documents formalizing every loan I had given, ensuring there would be no room for misinterpretation later. My financial planner helped me freeze all automatic payments tied to my relatives, and I installed an advanced security system at both our home and office. Even Amanda joined in, meticulously updating passwords and setting up filters to block their emails and calls. At first, it felt liberating, like shedding layers of invisible chains. I could finally breathe freely, knowing that my hard-earned money was mine to control. But liberation came with its own price. Within hours of severing ties, the backlash began, a relentless storm designed to break me down. Maria called late one night, her voice trembling between sobs and accusations. "You're ruining my life," she screamed. "My car's gone, my apartment's gone. I'm going to end up homeless because you hate me." Her words hit like daggers, but beneath the hysteria lay a familiar pattern of manipulation. Alex wasn't far behind, sending cryptic texts filled with thinly veiled threats. "These guys don't mess around," he warned. "If you don't pay up by Friday, they'll make sure you regret crossing them." But nothing prepared me for the email from my parents. It arrived just after midnight, written in my mother's shaky tone. "Your father hasn't slept or eaten properly since your betrayal," she wrote. "He collapsed today while trying to fix the roof. Please come immediately, it might be too late otherwise." The guilt crept in momentarily, whispering insidious doubts about whether I had gone too far. Then logic kicked in. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, who confirmed it was likely another fabricated crisis meant to guilt-trip me back into submission. Still, the attacks escalated. One morning, I opened the front door to find Alex standing on my porch, drunk and enraged. Empty beer bottles littered the ground around him, and his fists clenched as he shouted obscenities loud enough to wake the neighbors. "You think you're better than us? You're nothing without this family," he roared before picking up a potted plant and hurling it against the wall. Instinctively, I called the police. When they arrived, Alex resisted arrest, screaming accusations about how I had abandoned my own flesh and blood. As they dragged him away, I stood frozen, watching the scene unfold with a mix of anger and sorrow. Meanwhile, Maria took her grievances online. She posted screenshots of old text messages where I had promised to help with her rent, framing herself as the victim and me as the villain. "My brother is abusing his power," she wrote in a lengthy social media rant. "He refuses to support his struggling family even though he has millions." Friends and acquaintances chimed in, offering sympathy without understanding the full story. Some questioned why I hadn't simply cut her off sooner. Others condemned me outright. Each comment stung, not because I cared what they thought but because it highlighted how easily people could be swayed by half-truths. Then came their final gambit, the staged intervention. On a Thursday evening, I returned home to find 4 cars parked outside. Inside, Amanda sat stiffly on the couch, flanked by Maria and Alex, while my parents occupied the armchairs like judges presiding over a tribunal. The air was thick with tension, heavy enough to choke on. "We're worried about you, son," my father began, his voice laced with manufactured concern. "This isn't normal behavior, cutting off your own family, ignoring our pleas. We fear something serious might be wrong." My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue, adding, "Dr. Simmons believes you may be experiencing severe stress or early-onset dementia. He suggested we step in temporarily to manage your finances until you recover." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. They weren't concerned about my well-being, they wanted access to my accounts. "This isn't about mental health," I said, cutting through their charade. "It's about accountability. 4 years I've been exploited, treated like an ATM rather than a human being. That ends now." Alex scoffed, shaking his head. "You've changed, man. You used to care about us." "I still care," I replied firmly. "But my priority is my wife and children. Not people who only value me for what I can give." Maria stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "How can you say that? After everything we've done for you? Done for me?" I shot back, incredulous. "You've taken and taken, never once showing gratitude. Meanwhile, Amanda and the kids have sacrificed everything because of your greed." Their arguments grew louder, more desperate, but I refused to budge. Finally, Amanda stood, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Enough. Ethan has made his decision and it's the right one. If you can't respect that, leave." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, reluctantly, they filed out, muttering under their breath about how selfish I had become. That night, Amanda and I sat together in the dim light of the living room, holding each other tightly. "You did the right thing," she whispered, her voice soft but resolute. "I hope so," I murmured, closing my eyes. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe it. The months following my decision were a reckoning. A slow, inevitable unraveling of the lives my family had built on borrowed money. My parents, once comfortably middle class with a home I secretly subsidized, now lived in a modest apartment they struggled to afford. The mortgage foreclosure hit them hard, their pride shattered as they adjusted to a life without the luxuries they had taken for granted. I saw glimpses of this new reality when Maria posted photos online. Cheap furniture, mismatched curtains, and a kitchen that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Yet, there was no acknowledgement of fault, only thinly veiled resentment directed at me through cryptic captions about betrayal and selfishness. Maria's fall from grace was perhaps the most dramatic. Gone were her days of sipping lattes at designer cafes or posing in front of luxury cars she claimed as her own. Instead, she worked long hours at a retail store selling clothes she used to mock. Her Instagram feed transformed overnight, from glamorous selfies to filtered snapshots of mundane outfits paired with hashtags like #NewBeginnings. It wasn't just her career that suffered, her relationships frayed too. Friends who once flocked to her side disappeared when the free rides and extravagant gifts stopped coming. Alex's downfall came swiftly and brutally. His latest scheme, a fraudulent investment opportunity targeting elderly clients, landed him in jail for 3 months. The bruises he sported after his arrest spoke volumes about how those he crossed chose to settle scores. When I heard about his sentence, I felt no satisfaction, only a strange sense of inevitability. 4 years, Alex had skated by on empty promises and reckless behavior, leaving destruction in his wake. Now finally he faced consequences that couldn't be bought off, or blamed on anyone else. Meanwhile, my own life blossomed in ways I hadn't thought possible. Free from the constant drain of supporting 5 adults, I poured my energy into Sentinel Security. Within 6 months, we secured contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies, catapulting our valuation to $40 million. The office buzzed with excitement as we prepared to open a second location. At home, Amanda and I rediscovered what it meant to truly live together. We planned vacations, not spur-of-the-moment trips dictated by guilt, but thoughtful journeys designed to create memories. Helen's science project won first place at the state level, and Paul mastered guitar chords alongside his piano lessons. For the first time, I attended every soccer match, school play, and parent-teacher conference without distractions. My phone no longer vibrated incessantly with demands from people who viewed me as nothing more than an ATM. Instead, I found joy in small moments, helping Helen debug her coding projects late at night or cheering wildly as Paul nailed his first solo performance. These weren't just milestones, they were reminders of what I had fought so hard to protect. Then came the email. A year after I severed ties, my mother sent a message bypassing all my filters. "We are your family," she wrote. "Families forgive. When will you stop punishing us?" Her words stung, not because they were true but because they revealed how little they understood. This wasn't punishment, it was accountability. Forgiveness required acknowledgement of wrongdoing, something none of them seemed capable of offering. Their desperation reached its peak during a business lunch several weeks later. As I reviewed potential partnerships over coffee, I noticed them entering the restaurant, all four of them. Their appearance shocked me, my father thinner, wearing ill-fitting clothes, my mother's dyed hair grown out, revealing streaks of gray, Maria clutching a knockoff version of the purse I'd gifted her last Christmas, Alex sporting a faint bruise beneath one eye. "We need to talk," my father declared, trying to sound authoritative despite the tremor in his voice. "This is a private family matter." I remained seated, calm but resolute. "I'm in the middle of a meeting. This isn't the time or place." "It's never the right time," my mother spat, drawing stares from nearby tables. "You raised me," I said evenly. "And I repaid that sacrifice 100 times over. Yet it was never enough. You didn't value me for who I am, you valued me for what I could give." As they hurled accusations and insults, I rose from my seat, leaving cash on the table to cover our meal. Exiting the restaurant, I caught sight of them in the parking lot, already arguing over whose fault it was and who would pay the bill. That night, I stood alone in my study, staring at the old family photo still flipped face down on the shelf. Memories flooded back, the laughter, the arguments, the sacrifices, but also the clarity I had gained. I realized then that walking away wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about reclaiming my identity. It's been exactly 1 year since I cut off all financial ties with my family. 1 year of freedom, clarity, and rebuilding. 1 year of watching them face the consequences of their actions. Consequences they once believed I would shield them from. And yet, as much as I wanted to turn away completely, there were moments when their struggles tugged at the edges of my conscience. Not out of guilt, but out of a lingering sense of humanity. My father's heart attack 6 months ago was real, not another fabrication like so many before it. My mother's voice broke on the phone when she left that voicemail. "He's asking for you." For a brief moment, doubt crept in. Was this the time to extend forgiveness? To prove that blood still mattered more than betrayal? But then I remembered everything. The loans that were never repaid, the dismissive comments about Amanda and the kids, the endless demands that drained me emotionally and financially. So instead of rushing to his bedside, wallet in hand, I sent flowers and covered the medical bills anonymously. It was closure without compromise, a way to acknowledge the past without reopening old wounds. Maria eventually found a job selling retail products, a far cry from the glamorous, fashionista lifestyle she had envisioned for herself. Alex spent a month in jail after his latest scam unraveled, leaving him bruised and humiliated. My parents downsized into a modest apartment, learning to live within their means for the first time in decades. Watching them struggle wasn't easy, but it was necessary. They had relied on me for so long that they forgot how to stand on their own 2 feet. Now, forced to adapt, they began taking small steps toward independence, even if reluctantly. Meanwhile, my life flourished in ways I never imagined possible. Sentinel Security reached a valuation of $40 million, and we opened a second office in Chicago. Helen's science project won first place at the state level, earning her recognition from local universities eager to mentor young talent. Paul mastered both piano and guitar, performing duets with Amanda during our cozy family evenings. Together, we planned vacations, explored hobbies, and built memories untainted by resentment or obligation. But perhaps the most profound change was internal. Therapy helped me untangle years of guilt and manipulation, teaching me that love isn't transactional, it's mutual. The people who truly care about you don't exploit your generosity, they celebrate your success and respect your boundaries. Amanda summed it up perfectly one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sunset. "You gave them everything," she said softly. "But what they needed most was permission to grow up." The email from my mother last week lingered in my mind. "Families forgive," she wrote, as though forgiveness alone could erase years of entitlement and neglect. Yet forgiveness requires accountability, something none of them seemed willing to offer. Instead of responding, I let her words sit unanswered, a silent acknowledgement that some wounds heal only through distance. As I write these final thoughts, I glance at the framed photo on my desk. It's not the old family portrait, flipped face down in defiance. This one is new, a candid snapshot taken during our recent trip to the mountains. Amanda stands beside me, her arm wrapped around my waist. Helen beams proudly, holding up a medal from her science competition, while Paul grins mischievously, clutching a fishing rod. In this picture, there are no hidden agendas, no strings attached. Just love. Walking away wasn't just about cutting ties, it was about reclaiming my identity. For years, I defined myself by what I could provide. Now, I define myself by who I choose to share my life with. And so, as I close this chapter of my story, I leave you with this truth. Sometimes, protecting yourself means letting go of those who refuse to value you. Love isn't measured by how much you give, it's measured by how deeply you're appreciated. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by respect, trust, and mutual support. Looking back, I feel no regret. Only gratitude, for the lessons learned, the strength gained, and the family I've chosen to build alongside me.